Catastrophic flooding has devastated large parts of America's heartland. Nearly 3/4 of Nebraska, parts of South Dakota, and West Iowa have fallen victim to the worst natural disaster to ever hit this part of the country. According to some estimates, the total cost of damage to farms, ranches, homes, and businesses could surpass $12 billion once the floodwaters recede. Good evening and welcome to this month's edition of Rural America Live with AARP. I'm Christina Lorena. We also welcome in our listeners joining us on Rural Radio, Sirius XM 147. Tonight, the director of Nebraska's Department of Agriculture will join us to talk about the latest developments in his state, and we'll talk with farmer and rancher Anthony Ruzicka, whose sixth-generation farm was wiped out by large ice blocks and flooding when the Spencer Dam was breached. We're also going to share tips on how you can stay safe in the wake of a natural disaster. And maybe you have a tip to share with us tonight. We want to hear from you. Our question of the month is, how do you protect yourself during and after a natural disaster? And we are giving away fully loaded disaster backpacks to the first 9 on-air callers. So give us a call. We want to hear your story tonight. You are a big part of the show. And remember, you don't need to be a member of AARP or over the age of 50 to win. As a friendly reminder, you can only win one time each calendar year. So join the conversation, 877-283-7570, and we are ready right now to start taking your phone calls. Joining us tonight, AARP State Director from Oklahoma, Sean Voskuhl, and Sam Wilson, AARP Director for Wisconsin. Welcome back to the show, guys.
Great to be here, Christina. Great to be back, Christina.
Serious topic tonight.
Yes.
And you know, Sean, coming from Oklahoma, you're no stranger to severe weather. Talk about the importance of doing a show like this.
Well, it's extremely important. We're in the peak of spring storm season. And, you know, last year there was $91 billion worth of damage caused by natural disasters. And unfortunately, it looks like already in 2019, we're on a pace to meet that or surpass that goal. And so what's important tonight is, you know, we focus a lot on disaster prep, but tonight we're also going to talk about once disaster strikes, what help do you need? And so we always learn so much when we have this conversation because the callers share their tips. So tonight, you know, when folks who've experienced disaster, sharing those tips are, I think, a great opportunity for us to learn here on the stage, but also across the country. So please call and share your tips.
Absolutely. And you know, you talk about how we've already made these huge damage loss numbers, and we haven't even hit hurricane season just yet. That doesn't even arrive until June 1st. And so 2019 could definitely be one for the record books. Now, Sam, you actually spent some time in Iowa after the flooding. Talk about that experience.
Well, you know, it's absolutely been catastrophic. And tonight's show is really about putting the sort of the human face and the real tragedy behind it. You know, sometimes when you talk about devastation in terms of $12 billion of economic damage, it's hard to understand the scope of that. I think tonight we're going to do that. We did have a chance to spend some time in Iowa, and we had an opportunity to meet the Dashner family, and they're in that sort of recovery mode right now and trying to pick up the pieces and figure out what to do next. And we've got a story with them that I think will be really compelling to all of our viewers.
Absolutely. Let's take a look.
The house was built in 1863. We're about 3 years from a century farm. On this farm, 3 to 4 years, somewhere in there. It's kind of a pass-on generation type. The older generation moves to town, and then the younger stays out on the farm. But it's going to be a long road ahead. I had hay, square bales. I called the customer. I was storing it for them. They came, got all but 30 or 40 bales were left, and they're gone. So I don't know where they went. They went south somewhere. I had about 20 hours to get out when I heard from Dad, because he's on the river levee board. So he told me to get moving machinery, so I grabbed everybody I could to move machinery, and then called me at 5:30 in the morning that morning, said the levee breached south of us about 2 miles that we needed to get moving. That's how deep it was in the house here. So. But you can see mold starting, and so it'll be a matter of time before it's bad. So yeah, this was a light colored carpet. Here you can see the floor, kind of a tent effect.
We're going to lose neighbors, we're going to lose farmers because some of them can't financially survive this. It'll take 4 and 5 years at least to regenerate the land, to regenerate the equipment.
Grain affects a lot in the marketplace. I mean, the loss of livestock in Nebraska and Iowa. I mean, beef prices are going to go through the roof, and people have no idea that's coming because they don't know what's happening out here.
This next generation, it's going to be even tougher to come into farming with all these losses. And that's sad, too. Somebody's got to feed America. Somebody's got to do that. I don't know who that'll be.
It's really hard to see those images, and I mean, they just keep coming out of northeastern Nebraska, Iowa as well, and you're still seeing high levels on the Missouri and the Mississippi River, so just to be there firsthand really had to have an impact on you.
You know, when the floodwaters recede, you know, sometimes it's almost an out of sight, out of mind. You know, things look dry, they look normal, but what's left behind, as you saw in the video, it's complete devastation, and not just rebuilding homes and getting new machinery, but it's, you know, the soil, it has to recover as well. So it may be several planting seasons before a lot of the farmers can get back up and running. So as we always talk about in our disaster shows, recovery takes a lot longer than people ever expect, and it's the thing that often gets the least amount of attention. So we're focusing on that so people don't forget, and they can get the assistance they need.
Yeah, a lot of people adjusting to a new normal. Yep. All right, we have a special guest joining us tonight, Steve Wellman, Director of the Nebraska Department of Agriculture. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us. Now, your state, it was hit hard by that bomb cyclone, and a number of residents are struggling every day just to get by. Let's start with the current state of affairs in Nebraska.
Well, the current state of affairs is that the damage has been done by the widespread flooding and a blizzard that overlapped part of the flooding. So we are in the recovery stage. When we look at the state of Nebraska, 81 counties have declared emergencies, 104 cities and 5 tribal areas. There's about 50 million acres in Nebraska, and 91% of those acres are used some way for agriculture production. And agriculture definitely is a driving factor for our economy. So, again, we've felt the damage, and we're in the recovery stage.
How much, Director Wellman, how much damage do you think to date? Have you calculated that amount yet?
We calculated an estimate for Governor Ricketts when he submitted the request for federal disaster assistance. And we broke it down for agriculture. We broke it down in between for livestock and also cropland damage. And the livestock damage, that the beef industry is the sector that got hit the hardest. The damage that we estimated at that point in time, and we went back and checked this and haven't changed it, but we're estimating $400 million worth of damage to the livestock sector and $440 million to the crop sector. And there's a lot of factors that go into both of those categories to come up with that estimate.
Gotcha. What does that future look like for the farmers and ranchers, and you know, how's the mood? Are they willing to rebuild and start from scratch?
Yeah, the mood has been very resilient, very much, well, we've got bucked off, we're going to get back on, we're going to go back at it and rebuild and be better and stronger than ever. And it's also been, there's been a lot of outpouring of donations and contributions from across the United States to Nebraska in response to these disasters. And so, for one thing, we want to be thankful for all of the outreach and the contributions and the help that's been offered and received here by our state. And the farmers and ranchers that are impacted, even them, you know, they're wondering how their neighbors are doing and concerned about how their neighbors are faring through all this also.
Director Wellman, this is Sam Wilson with AARP Wisconsin. Do you have a sense, we always try to in these shows sort of learn lessons that'll help us prepare for the future. Is there anything we can learn from what you all have been going through? Is there anything that you're learning that, you know, that can prevent, you know, devastation into the future or help recovery go faster the next time something happens to this scale?
Well, I think it was a unique combination of events that led to this. So hopefully those type of events, the frozen land, the ground, the snow melt that happened quickly in addition to the rain, and then a dam at the Spencer Dam that broke loose. So hopefully things like that don't all happen at one time and contribute to something like this again. But yeah, certainly we learn about the resiliency, I think, of our residents and the farmers and ranchers. We also think about the impact to the rural communities and what that will mean for the future of those rural communities, for the homes that have been damaged, the people that have had to relocate, and will they come back to those cities? That's yet to be seen. But to learn from, I think we'll learn as we go along here. Yet there's still plenty of recovery and time that will be, time will tell what the results really are here. But there are federal programs that are available, so I think reaching out, those people that are affected, should not be afraid to reach out and utilize these programs that are available.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us, Director Wellman. We really appreciate your time. And joining us now on the phone is Anthony Rosiska, sixth-generation farmer whose family operation was completely destroyed when the Spencer Dam collapsed. Now, Anthony, talk about how you're recovering from this devastating experience, and we're curious to know about how your family made it through. Are your parents okay?
Yeah, we're alive. We're alive. I would like to say we're good, but no, we're not. We're struggling. Every day is a new problem, I guess.
Your property, you have a pretty large operation. You're a rancher and a farmer. Is there anything that is salvageable, and what are your most important needs at the moment?
The only thing that was salvageable was stuff that was picked up by our wonderful neighbors and friends. They went through the mud and picked stuff up. There's a couple of buildings that are still there. Yeah. What was the other question? I'm sorry.
Well, I'm just curious. When this happened, it's like we just heard from Director Wellman. He was talking about how this was a perfect storm. All the ingredients came together where you had the blocks of ice, the flooding, everything at the worst time possible happening. Can you kind of describe what it was like as that dam broke, being there on your operation, and how you reacted?
It was chaotic. That's what I would call it. You didn't know. We got a call at 6 o'clock in the morning, but you had no idea when the water was actually going to get there. So it was total chaos. We were trying to move stuff out, and we didn't know. Didn't want anybody to die because of something like that, but it was just chaos.
When a disaster like this strikes, there's really no way to fully prepare, especially what you had to go through. What would you say to our viewers tonight about how you are adjusting to this new normal after this experience, and maybe they'll have to go through something down the line similar to what you're going through? What would you say to them?
Rely on your friends and your family and your friends. That's where you get your strength from. Right now, there's nothing normal. It's total chaos. We need a home. We need a home, not just a house. We need a home. But rely on your friends and your family. That is what gets you through things.
Thank you so much for sharing this experience with us. Our prayers are with you and your family and everybody who was impacted in Nebraska, Iowa, South Dakota as well. All right, we're going to continue on. We're going to take a quick break first, but when we come back, we want to hear from you. And we have disaster backpacks to give away to lucky on-air callers tonight. These backpacks are fully loaded, chocked full of emergency supplies. Let us know what kind of a natural disaster you have experienced. Flooding, severe storms, earthquake maybe, wildfires. 877-283-7570 is the number to call. And we invite you to share your experience tonight. 877-283-7570. More Rural America Live with AARP right after this.
One thing my father taught me, water always runs downhill, but it doesn't run downhill today here in Pacific Junction. You can call this a flood, but it's One thing my father taught me, water always runs downhill, but it doesn't run downhill today here in Pacific Junction. You can call this a flood, but it's sure the biggest disaster that anybody that's lived around here for years on record has seen as what has happened in the last 2 weeks.
Welcome back to Rural America Live with AARP. Now, 2019 so far has been a punishing weather year, and unfortunately, disaster recovery scams are making their way through neighborhoods hit hard by these recent events. Our goal tonight is to help you avoid these scammers and fraudsters by stopping them right in their tracks. And remember, we want to hear about your experiences with natural disasters. Share your stories with us tonight. You are a big part of this show. And everybody who calls in and makes it on air tonight will receive a disaster backpack. The first 9 on-air callers. Our phone lines are wide open, so give us a call at 877-283-7570 and join the conversation. Joining us once again tonight, AARP State Director Sean Voskuil of Oklahoma and Sam Wilson of Wisconsin. Now, Sean, earlier on in the show, we talked to the Nebraska Department of Ag Director, and he was talking about how some farmers and ranchers are losing everything that they had. When this sort of devastation happens, scammers are right there just waiting to pounce. Talk about what we need to be aware of.
Well, that's the important part. It's devastating enough, losing everything, but then on top of that, you have scammers that come out and try to take even more from you. And it's important that we kind of go through those steps. And there's some people that are fake FEMA employees that are out there, so you need to be careful about those tips. And FEMA has provided some tips, and we'll go and look at those points right now. Just so you know, all FEMA representatives wear a photo ID badge. It's important that you know they're official. Beware of other people going to door. That's always a good sign to be careful about. Don't sign anything with people claiming to be approved contractors, as FEMA does not have approved contractors, so be wary of those types of scams. And if you spot a scam, it's important to call the FEMA Disaster Fraud Hotline at 866-720-5721. So if you spot any fraud, waste, or abuse, call that disaster hotline, and these are great tips from FEMA.
Absolutely. It's just unfortunate that there are people like that out there who would even go door to door and try to scam. All right, all of this information is available at aarp.org/AARP Live. Remember, we want to hear from you tonight. The number to call is 877-283-7570. Share your severe weather and natural disaster experiences with us. And we have callers standing by, so let's go right to the phone and give away some of those backpacks. Steve from Georgia, you are our first caller tonight. Go right ahead.
Yes, ma'am. I'm a retired veteran, and I'm in good health, and I'll be willing to come out and operate equipment. I got a lot of road experience and debris experience. I have experience in landfill. I just don't know who to contact.
I didn't quite catch. He asked who to contact.
I think he might be talking about who. Are you still on the phone with us, Steve?
Yes, ma'am. I'm looking at you right now.
All right. Can you? Maybe that's why we can't hear you so well. Sometimes when you're too close to the television. Hey, we're grateful for that. Thank you for watching. Can you ask your question one more time, please?
Yes, ma'am. I'd like to know who to contact about coming up there. I'm willing to make a move. I still got life in me. I know a lot of work. I know how to do a lot of stuff.
Oh, he wants to help out. Well, you know what? We will make it easy for you. You can go to aarp.org/AARP Live, or if you want to, just go to the RFD-TV page, and right there on our homepage, we have a full list of resources, places you can donate, volunteer, and we really appreciate your willingness to help.
Yep.
All right, Greg from Colorado, you are our next caller. Go right ahead.
Hey, good afternoon. How are you guys?
Good,
good, Greg.
Thanks for calling.
Hey, you're welcome. Hey, I got kind of a unique experience. I live in Colorado now, and we've got a farm out east by Snyder, but I've also spent a lot of time in South Texas, so I've experienced some hurricanes as well. So, kind of one of the things that we've done, and just to get in front of it, is we've used some social media, and we've banded together as communities, and we did it when the snow hit out east when that cyclone bomb came. We kind of got a team going, and we'd free up one neighbor, and then we'd free up another neighbor, and then the team would grow as we freed up neighbors. And then we went out and put a bunch of round bales out in the field to make windbreaks so the cattle would have something to get for with all the newborns. So I guess the thing that was the common link between both of those is we got in front of it. We weren't trying to be stupid and say we could save the day, but even on hurricanes, we used social media back when it first started, and we banded together and got all our boats together. So I think that social media and then getting in front of it and getting your neighborhood team and your community team to get in front of it sure helped us a bunch.
That's a great idea. And, we talk a lot about, what communications can you use when there's a disaster, because many times you can't use your cell phone because there's not enough bandwidth and you can't get phones out. So, if you can text, that's a good way, and also Facebook and Twitter, as a way to communicate. And I think that's a great example how they've done that as a community, helping each other out.
Yeah, I feel like Greg's watched some of our other shows maybe where we've talked about how to maximize, whether it be social media or mobile communications or whatever, to create a plan to help out your neighbors. And for particularly those that don't have someone to assist them, how do you find those people that are isolated, may not have friends and family? How do you get to them? Sounds like Greg's got a great network going in Colorado to make that happen. So congrats, Greg.
Yeah, congratulations on being a winner of that backpack as well, loaded with critical supplies that you will need in a disaster. Okay, up next we have Pam from Louisiana. Thanks for joining us, Pam. Go right ahead.
Well, I'm just astounded at the devastation. We had tornadoes here, and the tornado went in my back garden and broke my clothesline off of the ground, and we're now waiting for a roofer to come and fix the roof. But it's nothing like what I've just seen on there, and we are so sorry for those people. And I hope there's a lot more people like Steve that stand up and say they're going to help and they're going to do things. Yeah. By the way, I've watched just about every one of your shows. I hadn't missed one. And I've learned a whole bunch of stuff. And I have a brick wall that divides my kitchen from my living room. And when the tornadoes come, I pull the couch away from the wall and I get behind there. And I got a little cave back there I can hide in. And that's the closest thing I've got to a hideaway. But I learned that on your show, too.
Oh, good. Yeah. And be sure and try to stay away from the south and west sides of the house. Yeah. So she's doing all the right things, and it's so great that she called in and shared her tips. And we'll sure hope those tornadoes, it's that time of year, and
it is.
Hope folks can just be safe.
Pam's why we say we have the greatest viewers on TV.
That's right.
Hasn't missed a show practically. That's amazing. Thank you, Pam.
And you remember, you go into the innermost room of your home on the lowest floor possible. And we just talked about that when you guys were with us last time. So isn't it great to know that people are listening and
it's many walls
helping
between you and the outside.
It's absolutely right. Okay, we're going to go to Joe from Missouri. You are our next caller. Go right ahead, Joe.
Hey, hi there. We had a slight disaster here in Missouri with a ton of hail and everything, and we thought that was bad. But we see what real disaster is now in Nebraska.
Yeah.
And we really want to help somehow, either go down there and help when they say we can, or somehow help.
You know, I think the Red Cross is always a good place.
Yes.
When we had those issues in Oklahoma, there's the VOAD that's put in place, volunteer organizations helping with disasters. And so there'll be a way through the Red Cross, United Way, those organizations to ask for volunteers to help. And there will be different types of jobs that you could ask to help, whether it's debris removal, just helping folks collect and put their homes in order. But a lot of those organizations will have a great list of volunteering opportunities.
Okay, thank you so much for that call, Joe. And that leaves a line open for you and the potential to win one of the fully loaded disaster backpacks that we are giving away to the first 9 callers tonight. The number to call and join the conversation, 877-283-7570. Again, 877-283-7570. Raymond in Michigan, you are our next caller. Go right ahead.
Yes, I just for explaining my granddaughter's lives down in Louisiana, and they just the storm just missed them by about 4 or 5 miles. But I'm in the Knights of Columbus also, and we're sending people down to try and help them in the catastrophe they have down there. And I'm really pleased that they're going to call me tomorrow morning and let me know how things are going.
Good, I tell you, it's that time of season, so be careful, and I'm glad they've got a family communications plan where they're coordinating with each other and keeping contact.
You know, both Joe and others have talked about how do we help out people who've been devastated. You know, we had a really heartwarming story in Wisconsin recently about a local farmer who didn't really know what to do, wanted to give an impact, and he literally brought his trailer to a parking lot and got on the news and said, anybody that can bring anything, I'm going to drive to Nebraska with a trailer full of whatever supplies you will bring me. And because he really wanted to help out the farming community in Nebraska, and people just showed up in droves to bring everything from canned goods to paper goods, toilet paper, and paper, anything that could be used to help families get back on their feet. And it was just one person who said, I want to make a difference, and this is how I can do it. So, we clearly get that out of the sentiment of the callers tonight. People just want to pitch in and help, and that's what we do.
When Sam talked about the whole, we talked about Red Cross and other organizations, but, a lot of farm organizations, cattle associations, for people to donate hay and feed to help our farmers. That's also a great place to look. So Department of Ag in your state, your Cattlemen's Association, probably Farm Bureau, Farmers Union, those
Farm
types.
Service Agency offices.
Excellent.
Okay, thank you so much for that call, Raymond. We really appreciate it. We actually have a radar picture up just to show you where that strong storm is moving through right now, and it actually hit Louisiana really hard with large hail earlier on today. You can see right now it's moving into Alabama. That's where the strongest part of the storm is, but it is starting to fall apart. This has been a record storm already, so we're going to continue to track that. But April is severe weather month, and so it's that time of year we really want to be on guard. Join the conversation tonight. 877-283-7570 is the number to call. Next up is Ramona from Kentucky. Thanks for joining us, Ramona. Go right ahead.
Yes, we were in a 4 tornado and lost our residence and our 3 rentals. And if it hadn't been for our local TV station, we would have been killed because it just flattened our house to the subfloor. But we were lucky enough to have a basement to get to.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I think she points out how, determine how you're going to get your information about the weather in your area. If that's not available and you're good on social media, you can always download the free FEMA app as well. And that'll bring you a lot of instant weather alerts and help as well. But, I know I download my local TV stations and I look at the radar all the time looking for, what's going to happen in the area, and they send out alerts. So she brings up a great idea about, where you're going to get your information about severe weather. Yep. And make your decision how you're going to do that.
A lot of areas in rural America don't have the tornado sirens that they can hear nearby because everything's so sparsely populated. Okay, Robert from Illinois, you are our next caller. Thanks for joining the conversation. Go right ahead, Robert.
Okay, I've been through a lot of disasters on the Mississippi. And we found out that don't count on the government, that you do it on your own. We've had great luck with church services, and they have just been outstanding. We were rebuilding in the middle of the winter, and we couldn't get through the snow drifts, and they still showed up because we had livestock, and we needed to get rebuilt.
I think the faith-based organizations, I know some of the disasters we worked through in Oklahoma, they were instrumental in helping so many families and filling in that gap between, FEMA and funding from insurance. And so thank you for bringing that up, because there's so many great faith-based organizations that have disaster recovery teams in place, and many times they're the first to be on the scene of disasters.
Yeah, they'll get out there and help. And going into Easter weekend, of course, it's a great time to celebrate faith and faith-based organizations. Okay, I want to give out that number. We want you to call us tonight, 877-283-7570. We want to hear about your experience dealing with severe weather. Maybe you have a family member who had to deal with severe weather. Share those stories tonight. We want to share them with rural America. Or maybe you were approached by a scammer after a severe weather event. 877-283-7570. We're going to go back to the phones in just a moment. But Sam, before we do, you want to share some of the safe ways that we can donate to those in need, because there's also scammers out there looking to scam off of donation possibilities.
Yeah, and we've already heard about, the outpouring of support that people have. They don't know how to provide that assistance. So oftentimes they'll look for charities like we've talked about, but it's important to donate with care, right? And we need to make sure that you know exactly that the money you're giving is going to go to the community. So the biggest thing is, really be cautious about fundraising efforts that are initiated in social media. You don't know where those started. It may say it was initiated in your home community, maybe not. So be really cognizant of having some sense of trepidation, shall we say, if it started there. You want to be able to carefully evaluate the charity before donating. There's a lot of ways that you can do that. We're going to talk a little bit about one of the resources that you can use to make sure that the charity is on the up and up. Also designating the disaster. One of the important things is, if you specifically want to help those who are affected by the flooding in Nebraska and Iowa and the Dakotas, even if you're giving to the Red Cross or another organizations, be intentional about it. Say, we really want to give assistance to this particular thing, which has impacted friends, family, or you have a special connection to. So you have the option to do that, and that's always a smart way to make sure that your money's actually going where you want it to go.
Well, and then ask the question to the charity, how much of my money will go to direct response? And how much goes to administration?
Very good.
And one of the resources we talk to people on, a web-based service which is really effective, is the website charitynavigator.org. They track, the legitimate charities that are out there that you can trust that your money is going exactly where you want it to go, that they're spending the money actually for services and not just administrative costs to keep the organization propped up. So it's a really effective tool that we've recommended to folks over the years, and has proven to be a really useful tool.
Sometimes in our state, and I assume every state, through their Secretary of State's office, those charities are also supposed to register there. So you can actually go to your state's Secretary of State's office and determine, are they registered with the state at all? And that's a red flag if they're not as well.
That's great.
Absolutely.
Something that we've done this show a couple times now, and every time we do so, you always bring out the importance of knowing your area, knowing what type of natural disasters are prone to where you live, and having that plan in place. And I think that's something that we really need to reinforce tonight, is having that plan in place, because even though you don't know the magnitude of what a natural disaster will bring to your area, just being prepared can really help in the long run.
Well, we heard that already tonight. We heard it about the tornadoes in Louisiana. We talked about, the farmers we talked to in Nebraska, how it was literally a moment's notice. It was frantic. It was people trying to do things in a short period of time. Some of that can't be helped.
Yep.
But, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, as we frequently say around this issue. And that's really the case. In as much as you can, if if there is bad weather headed your way, or there's a sense that there's a warning out that people need to be prepared, make sure you've got that action plan in place and ready to go.
Absolutely. When it comes to the top 10 states for tornadoes, because right now we are into the thick of it when it comes to tornado season. You're on the list.
I know.
Number 1 is actually Texas. I mean, obviously that's a sprawling state, but Kansas is next, Oklahoma is 3rd, Florida, then Nebraska, Illinois, Colorado, Iowa, Alabama, Missouri, and then Mississippi. And so a lot of those states are concentrated in the Deep South, and we've been watching these patterns, especially over the past couple weeks. But then we go from tornado season right into hurricane season, which kicks off on June 1st. And after what we experienced last year in the South, just having that plan in place, making sure that you have a way to check on those neighbors who maybe are vulnerable. It's always so important. All right, we want to hear from you tonight. 877-283-7570 is the number to call. Our first 9 callers on air tonight will receive a fully loaded disaster backpack with a lot of supplies that can really help if you ever find yourself in a situation. But you know what? You should always have that ready to go, especially if you live in an area that is prone to hurricanes. If you are potentially going to lose power, you want to make sure you have all the items in place to keep you and your family safe. We're going to pause for a quick break, but when we do come back, we want to hear from you. And remember, we still have those disaster backpacks to give away to lucky on-air callers. Can't stress enough, these backpacks are loaded with critical emergency supplies. Give us a call. Let us know. Have you experienced a severe weather event or a natural disaster? And how did you recover? 877-283-7570 is the number to call. Share your experience with us and with Rural America. 877-283-7570. More Rural America Live with AARP right after this.
We've got such a great community base. The people are fed 3 meals a day. They can shop whatever they want and need. New toys. I mean, the gratitude, the donations just overwhelms me.
You have corn and potatoes on this one? Just the outpouring of caring, both emotionally and just people wanting to give their time. I can't explain just how passionate people are about helping each other here.
It's pretty serious. Livestock, the amount of cattle that we lost, the amount of hogs that we lost, they just floated down the water. There was no time to get them out. Consumers better watch it. because they'll find it in their pocketbook. It will be so much higher. With all this moldy grain, your byproducts of ethanol, your corn chips, your corn flakes, products are made out of farmers' grain. It's going to go up. No other choice. We are the hub of the nation.
It's going to be a long recovery. Welcome back to Rural America Live with AARP. We still have 2 disaster backpacks to give away, so give us a call and share your natural disaster story. 877-283-7570. We want to hear from you tonight. Let's go straight to the phones. Randy from Georgia, thanks for joining us. Go right ahead.
Well, I just want to say my heart goes out to all those in the Nebraska and Iowa region. We are right here in the heart of where Hurricane Michael came through on October the 10th, and you just can't imagine the devastation. Crops lost, buildings lost, and just trees, and we're 6 months later and still dealing with it. I mean, folks need to understand in disasters that we've seen here and what they're dealing with up there now, it's no short-term thing. It's going to be a long, ugly scar for a long time. I mean, trying to, when you look out in the barnyard and there's nothing there, the grain bins are gone, the tractor sheds are gone, the equipment's mangled, trees to move, fences to repair. It's not a quick thing to overcome. I mean, like I said, we are 6 months later and still feeling the effects of it, and we're in the process of planting season here, and you got farmers that are still trying to put financing together and recover, and I mean, it's just hard to prepare for all of this, and it's not a 6 month fix. It's a year, 2 year, 3 year, and further feeling the effects of it. And folks need to just understand that your whole livelihood has just been taken away from you. So just wanted to say, we're right there and with heartfelt feelings of what they're going through up there, because we're still dealing with it down here.
Randy, you make the point about sort of the length of the recovery process, and one of the things we heard was the concern some people may never come back, right? They may never come back to farm again. They may never come back to take up the ranch again, and generational farms are being lost in these environments. Did you see that same thing happening to you in Georgia, and how did you personally make it through when so many, will just call it quits?
Well, that's a funny thing you bring up that question. There's a group of my local farming friends that we get together every Thursday night, and our gathering tonight, that was a topic of conversation. We're under tornado threats coming here in the next 2-3 hours, and we've already had tornadoes since the hurricane that have damaged stuff that was repaired already after the hurricane. We had farmers with pivots that were re-erected and put right back on the ground, and our discussion tonight was, if we get hit again, that's it.
Yeah.
I'm not going through this again. It's too much.
Yeah.
Oh, Randy, our prayers are definitely with you as the recovery continues. We're going to go to Jeff from West Virginia. You are our next caller, Jeff. Thank you so much for joining the conversation.
Hi. Thank you for taking my call. What I was calling in about, the gentleman earlier had talked about communicating via social media and things of that sort. A lot of times those type communications aren't available. And what I would highly recommend is finding your local amateur, or what is commonly called ham radio operator, because right after a disaster, they can use either their home rigs or set up mobile stations to communicate with family and friends across the country and across the world.
Yep. He's exactly right. We don't say ham radio enough on these shows, and that's always a fail-safe backup plan to have.
the old school.
That's right.
Sometimes you got to bring it back.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's tried and true.
And it's reliable. I mean, we've talked. There's some folks that we've talked to. My son's in Boy Scouts, and they've taken them to show them what the ham radio is like. And if everything, all communication was lost, here's how we'd be communicating with each other. So, I guess at some point you get whatever you can to get the message out. And point is well taken.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Roger, for the reminder.
Thank you. Okay, we want to pitch that number one more time so that you can get your call in. That leaves a line open for you. 877-283-7570 is the number to call. I believe we have another caller on the line. Roger from North Dakota. Go right ahead, Roger.
Yes, I really want to offer my condolences for all the mess that's going on down there, and I feel sorry for those people. And we've been sending stuff from that we have down here from North Dakota, hay and fence posts and whatever else, and everybody's been real generous about donating, and we just can't do enough. But I have a little clue I'd like to throw out is that a bunch of us went together and we formed a deal through our local fire department, started through the fire department, is called a reverse 911 call. And we've got this through the county disaster situation. We're in western North Dakota where it's very limited population. So now if something comes up, tornado or big snowstorms coming, or we've been in these and we've been locked in where we can't even get out. We lived on a ranch south of Medora, and we were in there one time for 27 days with no nothing. Wow. But we have a reverse 911 call that comes in now, several hours or as quickly as they know before the storm starts. And I think that's one thing that, your local communities should really get on the ball and get behind with your counties and the state even to get they can warn you ahead of time a lot further than you know what's coming. So it's been a big deal for us up here.
Yeah, that's why I love this show, because we always learn new things every time, and people have great ways to help out. I wonder if Roger's still on the line. What are you doing that locally? Those donations? I wonder
I
kind of
think we
how
actually
that
lost.
that if they did organizations. So I thought that would be good information.
No, I mean, I think
people were interested.
Reverse 911, that's just something else we can just add to our books. All right, that leaves a line open for you, 877-283-7570. One more time, 877-283-7570. We still have time for your call tonight. Richard from Texas, you are up next. Go right ahead.
Yes, we farm land here that is rolling land, no flood issues, but we also farm land in creek bottoms. And we've had issues to where the water washes the dirt away or brings in silt banks. That, the dirt's washed away, you plow it up, you plant in it. It don't make much. The silt banks and stuff, it may be a year or 2, 3 before you can farm it. And I've been watching since all this started up there in y'all's area with what's going on. Now, how come the markets haven't responded to this? Because y'all have bukus of acres. Like one woman said, it may take 5, 6 years before some of this land's productive again. Been there, done that. I know what y'all got issues, I'm telling you, and I feel sorry for bukus of farmers up there.
Yeah, you would think that the markets would react. There's just so much going on, and it's become such a global market. And with the trade issues that we're dealing with, there's just so much at play right now. But I think that's a common question that a lot of the analysts have been asking on our Market Day report. So you have a very fair question there. I think a lot of farmers are wondering the same thing. Why aren't those prices going up if the supply is being restricted? Great question. We appreciate the call. 877-283-7570. That's the number to join the conversation tonight. We want to hear from you. Tell us about your natural disaster experience, or maybe you just want to say, hey, we're thinking about you in Nebraska. We're thinking about you in these areas recently hit by severe weather. We want to hear from you tonight, 877-283-7570. Gwen from Nebraska joins us now. Thanks for joining the conversation. Go right ahead.
Yes, we live in western Nebraska, so we weren't hit with the floods, but we have been areas where we had tornadoes. And one thing that was always of help to us was to have a battery-operated radio, because many times the electricity goes off and we have no communication of any kind. So we've learned to have a battery-operated radio and to keep it fired up with some new batteries every year. So that would be our suggestion.
Great one, Gwen. Thank you.
It's a great suggestion. I'm glad, Gwen, that you were not affected by the flooding. We talked to our colleagues in the AARP Nebraska office, and one of the things they really impressed upon us about the situation is a lot of the news coverage really talked about Omaha and some of the larger centers around Nebraska and the damage that was done. But what they told us was, nearly 3/4 of the entire state had some sort of impact by the flooding, whether as major or not as some other parts of the state, but it really truly was a completely devastating impact to that state. And again, some of the news coverage was in some of the more urban areas where there's larger populations that were impacted, but it really has left the vast majority of that state reeling after snow melt and flooding and everything else. So.
Thank you for that call.
Tough road to go.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's going to be years. And it is tough because you see all these farmers hopping on their planters and getting seed in the ground in other parts of the country. And some farmers just aren't going to be able to do that. Okay, we have some disaster planning tips that we want to go over with you gentlemen tonight.
Okay.
All right, then the one that I can always think of first is just always making sure that you have those supplies, canned goods, non-perishable items, making sure that you have water on hand, a safe supply of water, and having a plan to get in touch with your family members. Say you've got kids in school or you've got grandparents who are living in an area that's far away, just to make sure that you can all stay connected.
Well, and what you said is so important, and the rule of thumb is, have enough non-perishable food and water to last 3 days.
Yes.
Enough medications to last for 7 days, a week.
Key.
But, they determine you need about a gallon of water per day just for drinking water. And if you've got pets, per person, that's right. So, and if you got pets, you need to have more. So that's a good rule of thumb as well.
Well, and we also talk about a lot of times important paperwork, that sometimes when you see something like flooding, you cannot assume that when you get back in the house, those that were neatly tucked away in your drawer are still going to be there. And so the plan is to make sure you have copies of those papers that can go in your go bag, which we've talked about in the past, that you can take with you. So whether you need to be talking to an insurance adjuster, whether you need identification if you're in an emergency shelter, whatever it may be, if you can't sort of shelter in place with the food and water supplies that Sean's talking about and you have to go, you're going to need those things wherever you end up, whether it be with friends or family, or again, like I said, a shelter, a public shelter of some sort. So those are things we always need to remind folks, and it always sort of comes true to pass needing it.
Sam, we talk about all that paperwork, and it may be even better if you could get digital copies. Of those, if folks were at that point, or take pictures, if you can't figure out. I know the papers, but have the kids and grandkids help you take photos with your smartphone or try to get on a thumb drive or do that.
Next decade.
I know. We'll get around to it.
Yeah, flooding is the costliest and most common natural disaster in the U.S. And what I find interesting, as well as lightning actually kills more farm animals than tornadoes. And so there's a lot of things that we have to consider, especially when you're in rural America, that maybe urban Americans don't have to think about.
Well, I thought it was remarkable that talking about, we've often had that, what do you do with your livestock?
Exactly.
In the event of a disaster. And, we were hearing earlier in the show, literally the hogs are floating down the river. At some point, no matter how much planning you can do, right? So first and foremost, your family, you keep yourself and your family safe. If you can help the livestock, fantastic, but keep your personal self safe, and then do whatever you can for that. But in some instances, it's just a loss.
Yes.
There may not be a high enough ground.
Yeah.
And so, it's a tough decision. Do you keep your livestock pinned up, or do you let them open in the pasture where they can protect themselves, or cut the wire, open the gates, and let them go. And so, you just need to do an assessment of your farm, and is it safer? Do you have a lot of loose debris that can fly around, and electric issues could cause fires and electrocution? But those are tough decisions that farmers and ranchers have to make, is keep them pinned up or let them out.
It's not easy living in rural America, but we sure respect those that do it each and every day. They work hard. All right, we have a few minutes left. Let's go over some final thoughts. Sean, let's start with you.
Hey, we heard a lot about Nebraska tonight, and Connie Benjamin is the state director there, and her team of volunteers are doing a great job, and they've got 3 community events scheduled around disaster preparedness and disaster response. And we've got some dates and locations for those folks in the Nebraska area on Wednesday, May 5th in Grand Island. There's a meeting there from 10 to 11:30 a.m. The next location will be in Ralston on Wednesday, May 15th from 6:30 to 8 p.m. And lastly, Thursday, May 16th is at the Cornhusker Bank in Lincoln. And they'll have a great community event for folks to learn more about recovery events throughout the state. And shout out to, if you want to learn more, go to AARP.org/NE for Nebraska.
Final thoughts, Sam?
Well, I know we've talked a lot about our friends and family and neighbors in Nebraska. One of the things that we want to impress on folks who are looking to help, you can go to nebraska.gov/Nebraska Strong. There's a lot of resources there that people can go to in order to provide some direct assistance for folks who have been impacted. The other thing I want to say, too, is hot off the presses, AARP has committed both our state offices in the impacted states as well as our foundation to providing some monetary resources to local aid agencies to help families who have been impacted. So we really want to make whatever contributions we can as well. So it's something that we're happy to be blessed to be able to do. And we know that those local agencies will get that money into the hands of people who really need it.
And that's Nebraska, Iowa, and South Dakota. Is that correct?
Yeah, I believe right.
Yeah, and you talk about a blessing. We're just grateful, that the people who did make it out are okay. And our thoughts and prayers are definitely going to be with you as we go into this Easter holiday. We're thinking about you. We care about you. And like we talked about, you can find more resources on our website, RFD-TV.com, right there on the homepage, ways to donate, ways to volunteer. Well, that about does it for us tonight. Remember, you can find a wealth of resources as well at AARP.org/AARP Live. Don't forget to join us next month, May 16th, as we take a look at some ways to make positive changes to your home community. And lucky callers will win a Yeti cooler. Thanks for joining us.